So next, we'll be looking at how we can empower the future by driving greater financial resilience and wellness for a new generation of consumers. And what does the consumer of tomorrow look like? How are shifting demands, expectations, and needs driving new business models? So to take us through that journey and introduce our panelists, please welcome the CEO of Money and Pensions Advice, Caroline. Can I have you on stage?
Super. Thanks very much for the introduction. So I'm going to, in the interest of time, because I know we're running a little bit behind schedule, I'm going to call my incredible panel to the stage. If you'd all like to step forward, that would be super. And we have Nicky Goulimis, who is the co-founder and board director of Novacredit. Welcome, Nicky. We have Louise Hill, who is co-founder and CEO of GoHenry. Stevan Bajic, who is CEO of Manigo, and James Robinson, Managing Director of TransUnion. Thanks very much for joining me. So we're going to take the conversation further into the future, and FinTech is absolutely associated with the future. So how good is it that we get the opportunity to kind of focus and concentrate? At the Money and Pension Service, we're very focused on financial well-being right across the UK, and just picking up on Claire Moriarty's point, we're interested in helping everybody. And so I'm very interested to explore actually how FinTech can be that force for good for everybody and their financial well-being. So can I start off the conversation by perhaps asking Nicky, what do you think the sort of FinTech advancements are that can be used that will actually help improve people's financial well-being?
Sure. I mean, I think the answer was sort of given this morning, so sorry to repeat, but at my business at Novacredit, we believe deeply in the power of data to unlock an underserved set of consumers and help them access financial services. So the segment that we focus on at Novacredit is immigrants. In the UK, 1.3 million people arrived last year. Those numbers are growing regardless of political perspectives. Immigration is something that happens all over around the world, 250 million people. But when they arrive, they have zero financial identity. The current credit reporting system is not able to serve them because they haven't developed a credit history, a transaction history in this country. And so we solve that by building these credit passports, effectively a financial identity that can move with folks across border. And then we partner with banks. We've recently launched with HSBC in the UK. We've partnered with Amex, with Verizon in the US, a number of other players to make those financial identities available and those consumers access the products that they deserve.
Nicky, thanks. And just building on that, Stefan, can I sort of get you to sort of give us a little bit of an insight about actually how can we make the money add up? So obviously those people in FinTech businesses or profit-making organizations, how do you square that off with serving perhaps a demographic who can't self-fund?
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. And I just overheard the previous panel talking about that all these things in FinTech, they do cost. Every movement of money, every bank transfer, every data point that is being pulled costs. And in our case at Manigo, where we essentially provide the tech to enable FinTech use cases, our challenge is how can we support doing good and supporting use cases that ultimately want to do good for current and future generations, supporting financial resilience and well-being. And the fact that all these things cost, starting from technology, but then also utilizing the financial services, movement of money, payments in and out. I think, and we think that it almost needs to be a collective initiative in order to almost, as a label, kind of collectively we support use cases that are doing good for the society and for the generations. And what that means is ultimately managing those costs and managing to bring those costs somehow down so that non-for-profit or just about use case, sustainable use case can be produced, because the cost is there, and with everything going around in the economic cycle, cost of living crisis, etc., the costs are increasing because the vendors are increasing their costs. So we need to, I think, find a way to manage that, and collectively, I believe, because ultimately we also rely on a supply chain, collectively almost label and come together to support good use cases for
Stevan, thanks. James, I wonder if we might just sort of get you to focus a little bit more on the importance of credit score. Nicky introduced it when she talked specifically about that sort of group, the demographic group of new immigrants coming in. But we know credit score is actually something that there's a certain demographic around sort of 30 to 40 age range that think that that's the most important thing. But just tell us a little bit about why you think that is so important and how we can make sure that we spread that opportunity across the piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's working, yeah. So, obviously, at TransUnion, people know us as a credit reference agency, but we actually support, indirectly with our partners, over 20 million UK consumers with their credit score, credit report, and credit health information. That's across the spectrum of the demographics. So that's people coming out straight out of kind of schools, university, from 18, all the way up through the demographics. We actually see that your credit education health has a massive impact, not only on your financial future, but on your mental health. So actually supporting people with their credit information can relieve stress. I think the other panels mentioned this morning around the cost of living crisis. That has caused so much financial stress, and if people don't understand what a credit report means, what it can do for you, the advantage of that, and taking control of that, it can have a massive mental health burden on individuals. We actually went around to a number of universities in the last year talking about credit information, what it is. And my favorite question that was asked at the back of one of our lectures was, is it true that if I pay my credit card a few days late, it actually boosts my credit score? And we kind of went, no. So it just proves the point that a lot of people think they know, but without actually giving access to tools, education, information, support, they don't really know what's happening. So that's our mission. Our strapline at TU is information for good. So we try and empower brands, and we're here today talking about this because we believe that FinTech has got a massive part to play in with the audience that people are talking to. Louise from GoHenry is here, and says we were talking earlier around that education from not just from an infant, but how do you build that up on a basis to go into maturity? How do you kind of educate right from the start? And so kind of credit scoring information is really important, but it's what else can we do around that financial education in general that will really support and help people going forward.
Perfect segue, because I think, as we're very much focused on sort of the future, then we're better to start than the future generation. And Louise, you've been doing a huge amount of work in GoHenry. That important point about linking with children at an early age to actually build up good behaviours. Let's just talk a little bit about actually your work in that space and actually the difference that it's starting to make.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. So for those of you who don't know, GoHenry is a debit card and financial education app aimed at children from the age of 6 to 18. We spend a lot of time teaching the kids who are using the app in the way of learning by doing, but teaching them about how to use money in today's world. And our mission is very carefully worded. It's to make every kid smart with money. We're very mindful, Stevan said earlier, that there is a cost to doing business in FinTech, and we charge a subscription fee. We're very mindful that not everybody in the world can afford our subscription fee, and that's the reason we use the word every child in our mission. We try and do a lot outside of that, and actually at the moment I'm spending a lot of time talking to government and anybody in Westminster who is prepared to listen to me about the importance of embedding, embedding financial education, financial literacy into every school in the UK from primary school age. There's loads of studies. There's a particularly strong one from Cambridge University that shows financial habits start to be formed at the age of 7. So leaving it for secondary school, you've already lost a huge opportunity. And we have now 12 years worth of data in the UK, 5 years in the US, showing the impact that a simple app like GoHenry can have on children and teenagers' confidence with money, and how they then emerge into the world of adulthood and credit scores and credit and banking and all of those financial services that there are so many providers of here today. But they emerge better equipped, more confident, understanding properly what an APR is, what the difference between APR, AER, buy now, pay later, investing. All those things that can be introduced early if they're pitched in the right way, in the right language, in simple, easy to digest modules. We have money missions in GoHenry, but there are lots of other providers out there doing similar things, charities going into schools. It's, to me, obviously, I've got skin in the game here, but it is the obvious place to start. And at GoHenry, and me personally, we are starting to call on government to develop a financial literacy strategy for the company, for the country, and to embed financial literacy into every single school in the UK. I really do think that is a way to make a paradigm change in our society.
Super, thank you very much. Can I just explore with the panel a little bit now about, do you think the sort of advancements that we're seeing already in FinTech have started to change how consumers actually respond and engage with their money? Can I start with you, Nicky?
Sure, and maybe I'll offer one positive trend and one negative trend. You know, FinTech is a force for good, but not always. So positive trend, consumer duty, and I think the work that the FCA has done there to make that sort of mandated across the industry is an incredible trend. I mean, we're already seeing banks, neobanks, all sorts of money movers becoming much more proactive about not only educating consumers, but offering them products that are positive, that they understand well. And so, you know, for Novacredit, the work that we do, we see that as an incredibly positive tailwind, and the engagement around the immigrant community, which has different language, et cetera, needs, has been fantastic. Maybe an area where, you know, we haven't spoken about as much today, where technology can be challenging, is, you know, we've talked about AI as a force for good. It can also be a very nefarious force. We see a massive increase in fraud in the UK and account takeover, but more specifically APP fraud, and I think that's an area that technology needs to be addressing as well.
Super. Shall I go to you next, James?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just actually building on that theme. Fraud is a massive problem in the UK. I'm sure probably everybody in this room has had those messages where it might be your card's been compromised or an email's come through. Bring it back to kind of credit information. The credit report is one of the first places where you can see fraud happening on your account. Earlier this year, my accounts were taken over, and I had to then go through a whole process to try and get those accounts kind of re-enabled and that debt taken off my name. And me working in this industry for 16 years, don't ask how old I am, has been a challenge personally. So that kind of made me think, well, what more can we do? What more can we do to help people who are experiencing this fraud? What more can we do to provide information and guidance and tips around that? And I completely agree that that trend's going to increase. More and more fraud, more account takeover. But how can you bring solutions and products that can give that evidence to the consumer? Dark web monitoring is a great tool that's out there in terms of being able to see that information. So how can we use those pieces of information for good to make sure consumers can be informed and then take action in terms of anything that might happen to them?
Super. Louise, just in terms of sort of trends, and obviously you're focused at, you know, one particular area, which is the sort of the beginning of people's sort of financial lives as their children and young people sort of move. What are the sort of trends that you've been seeing over the time that you've been working for GoHenry?
It is fascinating. It's one of the favourite parts of what I do is when we look at some of our data, because we're obviously, I guess, in a privileged position where we have huge quantities of data showing how young people today, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, are interacting with their money. And just to pull out a couple of examples, as we went into the COVID pandemic, obviously behaviours worldwide shifted. We saw over the 12-month period from the start of COVID to 12 months after that, we saw a huge shift in children and teenagers starting what we ended up calling bedroom businesses, which sounds slightly dodgy, but they were using digital tools. They were using their access to the internet. They were earning money from selling second-hand clothes on Depop and Vinted and eBay. They were making money, in some cases, from cryptocurrency trading. They were making money as social media influencers. They were gaming and earning money that way. There was a substantial shift. And across that period, we looked at wider data. Household incomes, household earnings went up about 4%. When we looked at 500,000 kids in the UK, their earnings went up 9%. And another really interesting shift since the phrase the cost of living crisis has been coined by the media, and that's become kind of a mainstream phase. We looked at 750,000 kids over the last 12 months, and their interactions with money, again, real shift. They have started to save a lot more money. And we put out a youth economy report fairly recently talking about, is this the end of the bank of mum and dad? So a little bit of a fun title, but when we questioned the children about, and teenagers about why were they saving, they were hugely conscious of the cost of living crisis. And the themes that came through again and again were, I can't expect my parents to pay for my university study. I don't expect my parents to pay for a wedding, for a deposit for a house. I need to start now. Now, whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but they have the tools now. They have the tools and they can start to do that. And it's great that they're understanding early the power of saving.
Can those
Very
kids be mine,
interesting,
please?
yeah.
Can I have those kids, please? That'd be great.
They're very interesting, actually. It's probably going to switch from the bank of mom and dad to the bank of the kids, right? If they're making more money than parents during period. But it does sort of play into that space of actually saving as an important way of actually improving financial resilience. I mean, one of the things we know across the UK is there are around 11 million people who don't have £100 put by in savings. That means that it doesn't take very much to tip those people into debt. Stevan, can I come to you and sort of ask your view on the sort of role that FinTech can play in sort of helping people to save? I mean, we've heard how GoHenry is helping, many children switch from save to switch to save. Are there any other sort of opportunities, do you think, that actually we could use FinTech as a force for good in that space?
Yeah. Adding to what was said, and also my thought earlier about the collective initiative, I think we need to be mindful that everything we talk about that can be done, should be done, that with that we can reach everyone out there, every demographic, immigrants, migrant, minorities, and really marginalized people. And I think it's attacking of, as Nicky explained, for example, people coming to the UK without a UK credit profile, people often coming to the UK without a full dossier of proof of identification, address, etc. There are ways that can be found, how to bank them, how to provide them financial services. And I think this is something that we need to keep in mind, that, and really kind of dig with tech, and maybe the profile can't be completed straight away, but it can be completed in a way that some services can be provided. And again, going to the initial thought about, we need to think, how can we really touch everyone out there that is in need of financial services, and different needs, but like really kind of being able to touch everyone is my kind of key thought.
Yeah, and that is a perfect segue into where I want to sort of explore next, which is around actually engagement. So one of the things that we know at Money Advice, Money and Pension Service, is that actually engaging with people with their money is actually difficult. What we want to do is to help people with information and guidance and advice, point them in the right direction, but actually getting them to engage is really tricky, particularly with certain groups. Do you see FinTech giving us an opportunity to actually help people engage more? Can we bring that into their everyday lives? I'll go this way through the panel. Nicky, shall I start with you?
Yes, absolutely. I think, and maybe again we might be agreeing with one another, but when it comes to the credit reporting side of things, what people need is not generic advice, they need tailored advice to them, and that is the power of the credit report. It is a personal piece of data that you can understand. So if I am an immigrant or anyone in the UK and I want to manage my financial opportunity, having access to data that is relevant to me is not only going to be more engaging, it's also going to be the right way to address any problems.
Super. Louise?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a huge power of FinTech is removing fear, demystifying things, couching previously complex financial ideas in simple, easy to access language. And I think a big learning process that we went through was when we released money missions for children, and the first cohort we released that for was 6 to 10-year-olds. And it was bite-sized education. But we immediately had parents contacting us saying, my child's just explained XYZ to me. I didn't know that. Have you got assets for parents? And that has increased. We then released 10 to 14. We now have 15 to 18. So in the 15 to 18-year-old education, we're talking about investing, ETFs, fractional shares. We've realized we had to produce a whole suite of stuff for parents. And what's really excited me with that was, obviously my target is teach kids about money, but if we can remove some of the fear for parents as well, and it's all about just making it accessible. When you're a parent, you want the best for your kids, so you push yourself a little bit further, you try and do things you're uncomfortable with. I can remember going up a pole at GoApe and thinking, oh my God, why am I doing this? But it was because I wanted to show my 2 kids that they shouldn't fear it. It's the same. It's exactly the same principle.
So I have to say, actually, from personal experience, I know with my granddaughter, that she's kind of, come on, Nanny, you can do it. You can do it. And that sort of motivation that you will get from kids if you get your kids engaged, they'll actually, that spreads through. So, Stevan, what can we do to really tie in that engagement using FinTech?
I'd like to pick up on 2 words that Louise said, and those are complexities and fear. And I'd like to send out a word of encouragement to anyone thinking out there that, and getting inspired by what we talk about, maybe tackling some of those challenges out there and wanting to provide services for everyone, is that it is not so complex, or there are providers and there are companies out there that can reduce the complexities and facilitate and put away the fear and really kind of tackle the problems that you think are there. In our case, we support, we reduce the complexities on the tech as well as on the regulatory side, but we do also have a few use cases where we do really dramatically reduce the cost and facilitate them to go out into the market. So I think it's again, requires collective initiative, but also really the courage to tackle the problems that we are talking about here.
James, anything you want to add to that space?
Yeah, so for me, engagement's important. So what type of engagement? So I think because of the way the matrix of the data that we've got today, you can over-engage as well. So you've got to be really, really careful that you have the right level of engagement. Otherwise, it can be noise, it can be distraction, it can be, oh, another notification pops up, but I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to scroll again because it's not relevant to me. So how do you balance that engagement level with the right outcome you're trying to prove? I think the outcome is the key thing there. So what outcome are you trying to prove to that demographic, to that individual? The point about personalization is absolutely essential. What information do you know about their life stage, about their next step that you can engage them with to help them support them at the right time, at the right place? Otherwise, if you throw everything at them, nothing's going to stick. So that's my word of caution, is engagement is fantastic, but it's got to be the right engagement at the right level. We've found that at TU. We found that we've bought products that can have too many messages and features. We've actually scaled those back to be simple, keeping it effective, and keeping it kind of what's your outcome is the kind of key message to leave there.
Yeah. All about that Goldilocks message, isn't it? That message where, not too much, not too little, got to get it just right. And the pursuit of many of us in the room is actually trying to identify what getting it absolutely just right looks like. So look, we're out of time. This has been a really interesting chance to explore some of the themes with the panel. Hopefully you found that of interest. Can I thank each of you on the panel for your contributions and preparation for today, and wish everybody here a successful remainder of the day. Certainly lots of interesting stuff coming through that I'm very privileged to hear. So thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.